Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this new panel. I'm very honored, I'm very pleased to be the moderator of this discussion with this distinguished panel of experts that I'm now welcoming. Mr. Anders Ludvigsson, Chief Operating Officer and Accountable Manager in Maersk Air Cargo. Mr. Richard Lewis, Director of Engineering, Ryanair Group Airlines, and Chief Engineer in Ryanair. Mr. John Cousin, MRO, Global Operations Director in Safran Aircraft Systems, and Dr. Janina Bergman, Senior Director Authorities and Management Systems in Lufthansa Technik. Thank you very much for your ability and for being here with us today to discuss this topic that you see here on the screen. Here you have the title of the panel. And what's really the focus of today's panel? Trying to set very quickly the scene here. Basically, what we want is to reflect in one main question. And the question is, how prepared are we in terms of innovation, new workforce, the pace of change, when we are talking in a maintenance environment of the management of human factors? That's the core topic that we will be discussing with some of the questions. And in the questions, we will be talking about, first, the human aspect, then we will be talking about the tools, and of course, we will talk about the commercial pressures, which is one of these very important topics when talking about the human factors. And before diving into this discussion, a quick reminder, we have a Slido, you already know that, we are collecting questions for that, but there is something very particular in this panel. You will see that we have added one question there, and we will be happy to have your feedback. The question is, what is the most significant contributing factor affecting human performance in maintenance? And we will create a word cloud based on your answers. So, I thank you in advance for your cooperation here. Let's start by looking at the workforce transformation. And here I would like to start with you, John. And let's focus on what are the biggest, in your view, what are the biggest human factors challenges when we are talking about the new generation of technicians and engineers?
Maybe if I have to select one word, I would say training. We talked about it with Captain Harter earlier. But before going into more details, quick word about what I do, what we do. So Safran Aircraft Engine is the OEM, but also does maintain roughly 80 to 90% of the newest generation of aircraft engine for single aisle, called the LEAP, going on the A320neo platforms, Boeing 737 and Comac. As part of this global positioning, we have to grow by a factor of 6 in less than 10 years. So that's very easy. We put $1 billion on the table, we build factory, we buy a piece of equipment. But the biggest challenge is people. We are a not automated activity. We rely on people. So the consequence of that is that we have to recruit 2,000 mechanics in the span of 5 years, plus another 1,000 support staff. And the problem that this industry is facing, I think globally, is that post-COVID, we have a global shortage of talents. So the consequence is two things. The first one is we have to source talents everywhere. In our case, that's India, Morocco, a bit of Europe, a bit hard in Europe, but happening. And so that's one consequence. The second one is the background of the technicians we are employing. In the past, we could rely on the pool of talent with an aerospace background. It's no longer the case. Actually, one of the best mechanics we have in our shop near Paris was a plumber. So safety is, on top of everything. We're going to talk later on probably around operational challenges, financial challenges. It's nothing compared to our biggest target, that is ensuring safety. So the consequence is, if you have people from all over the world with different backgrounds, how do you ensure the quality of the work they do? So we had to really rethink and engineer the way we train and mentor people. For example, just one example, we decided that we'll never let people work on an engine if they have less than 1 year training. So 6 months theory and at school and 6 months on-job training. I think our finance guy could say that, well, let's do it a bit faster, you know, because you would bring more people. We'll never do that. So minimum 1 year, up to 2 years in certain cases. So that's one particular example of the challenge we have to face to ensure flight safety.
Thank you, John. You're mentioning mentorship as a 2 key elements, right? I would like to have your views, Janina, on this particular point on challenges of the new generation.
I want to add something to Sean's comment, because new generation is not always younger colleagues. As Sean mentioned, we have experienced workers out there, and we have a shortage in aviation workers. So when we get new colleagues, they have a certain background, they have a certain working history, and not in aviation. And that's the challenge, to explain them that aviation is different. So in aviation, we have to follow rules, sometimes very strict rules, strict procedures, and it's all about safety. And in our company, we have a slogan, safety ranks first for us. And it's not a one-time job. Okay, you have to onboard them, you have to train them accordingly, but it's a day-to-day job to really get them on board and to show them, safety is key. And what we do, for example, is we use reporting a lot. I heard 145 organizations do not use reporting enough. I would say on human factors, I would say no, that's not the case. We really use reports a lot. And we talk about the reports with our colleagues, and we use it as real examples to talk to them. So here is an occurrence, what can we learn out of it? And it's an occurrence, a report from your colleague. It's not a fictive or an imaginary report, but it's a real case, a real life case from our organization. And then we did discuss about the cases. And we value and really promote this behavior of reporting culture, because we want to have and live just culture. And I give you an example from our organization we had, and I really like that we talked about it a lot in our organization. It was in line maintenance. It was a mechanic, and he finished his work, and then the aircraft left the gate, and it was on its way to the runway, and then he found out, I cannot find my flashlight. Where is it? And you can imagine that's a huge problem because it's high commercial pressure on the guy. And he decided to inform his supervisor, and he stopped the airplane. And it's a brave behavior. And then, of course, the plane was stopped, and they were looking for the flashlight. Luckily, it was not in an engine or in an aircraft, and a colleague found the flashlight. But we really talked about this case, and we valued this behavior because it shows a lot. He was brave enough to speak up, to raise his hand and say, stop the aircraft, I'm not sure. And that's the behavior we want to see, and I really think that's just culture. And I think that is the ongoing daily job, to tell the new colleagues, so that's the culture we want to live, we want to see. And it's different when we have colleagues from a plumber, energy management, automotive. They have a different culture, and it's important to get them on board into our culture, in our reporting culture.
Yes, thank you, Janina. Very good reflections. I would like to move now. We were very much focusing on challenges, but I would like to come to the question in a positive thing. So what are the strengths the new generation are bringing to the maintenance environment, again, with a focus on the human factors management? And here, Anders, I would like to have your views first.
Yeah, I made some notes from when we started this conversation, I think almost 2 months back, when we prepared for the panel. I have the pleasure of serving pro bono on the board of a flight school, and when us older gentlemen complain about the next generation, that they're not ambitious, etc., I have a completely different view. I have so many young, talented, ambitious, let's say, new colleagues joining the industry, In this case, it's about the future pilots, but I see the same also in maintenance. And we have a unique opportunity in bringing that energy. And let's say they are digital natives. They grew up with digital tools. They're not, let's say, afraid of using them. So they can bring that into the organization and help the existing workforce to adapt. So I think that's an opportunity we have to really use their let's say skills and knowledge from maybe other industries and from growing up with these tools. So.
So, Richard, can you complement perhaps from your view, what are these top strengths?
Yeah, I mean they're digitally very fluent, so we've harnessed that, and our focus both in line and base maintenance is keeping the to improve the human factors is keeping the engineers, mechanics, and trainees at the aircraft. So with the device in their hand, we've been lucky to be able to big investment in that over the last couple of years, and the more we can keep at the aircraft, order the parts right to the aircraft, so the stores actually come to the aircraft, so you don't need to leave that environment, and distraction then reduces significantly. So that's been successful for us so far. We're just trialing it at our stations now and rolling it out throughout all our bases. But certainly, the more we can, and from my side, it's really clear and concise messages. So constantly challenging the camo team, that the instructions that they're issuing out are bite-size, and 1 or 2 lines, because we're dealing with a TikTok generation, or people that just want bite-sized 10-second. They don't want to read 10, 20 pages of what's the key message. Okay, we've had an in-flight shutdown. What's the message we need to get out there quite quickly and rapidly? And that's from my side. And getting the message across to the generations that it's okay to take delays. That's a key message from the top. We have thousands of delays every year, and take that pressure off the staff in terms of just being accepting delays, and we learn from delays. Particularly in area around flight deck configuration, where we would see that, in the line environment where people feel they have to rush around. And the constant message is, take 5 or 10 minutes extra, have that cup of tea and coffee, make sure everything is right before you release the aircraft. And I think that's key. And encouraging reports, the amount of time I hear about, the reporting rate is up, that's a good thing. And it's the repeat reports that we need to focus in on, and the significance of the reports. And sometimes I think as an industry we need to embrace reports more, and encourage reporting, particularly with the new generation coming through as well.
Which is a kind of follow-up very nicely, with the previous panel discussion about the reporting.
Yeah.
Yes. Janine, I would like now to know from you, because you were responding the previous question on the challenges, now on the strengths from this new generation.
When I think about the new generation, especially Gen Z, I see a lot of strengths, but 2 stick out for me. The first is they learn very fast and they adapt very quickly, as long as they see a purpose. And if you have kids or younger colleagues, they ask a lot of why. And sometimes it's very challenging to answer all the whys, but I see the sense behind it. If they see the purpose and they have an answer, they are very committed and follow the rules and adapt very, very quickly. And in this why, I see also fuel for continuous improvement, because they are so challenging, and then you have the opportunity to really improve the system. And another aspect or strength I see is the young generation is very confident. They are not afraid to speak up. They are not afraid of facing their supervisors. They are super challenging and curious, and I think that's the behavior we want to see, and attitude we want to see in aviation, because it's the basis of just culture. Speak up, raise your hand if there is something that is not okay. So we have, for example, sometimes difficulties with manuals. Manuals are not every time as clear as we would like them to be. And then we see young colleagues and they say, okay, I cannot work according to this manual because it's not clear enough for me. So I have to stop here. I have to ask questions. And then it's the starting point for discussion with the OEM, for example, and we can improve the system. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, certainly has a positive impact, no? When you are managing the human factors in maintenance.
And another opportunity, I think, is they come as a clean sheet. So we have, let's say, a generation of the mechanics out there who have been brought up on maybe the current generation or maybe even the previous generation of aircraft. Now you have new aircraft coming in, which looks the same. They may even have a, let's say, a type number that looks similar, right? The 737 or the 320, but they're very different. So there are some inherent dangers in that you apply the own procedure or the old procedures based on your experience. We have an opportunity now to teach the new generation to do it right from the beginning, so to speak. So that's also something that we can benefit from.
Exactly, brings new opportunities now,
Yeah.
clearly.
I think as well, one of the challenges I know we're focusing on, it's not so much an age, but from a hand skills perspective, that's a challenge, particularly for myself and the team. Great with digital, great with the theory side of it, but the hand skills is really an area that we're focusing on. And we've been lucky to invest in training devices and training aircraft, and allow the trainee to make the mistakes in the classroom environment and in an environment of an environment that it's not on the line environment at the start. And one of the things I know AI has been touched on here a good bit, but we're starting to roll it out at the mechanic level, whereby they have an AI, an avatar, let's say, that they can use outside of hours. So they can ask, like, there's no silly questions or there's no stupid questions. So, for example, they can ask the avatar, is it okay to approach an aircraft with an anti-collision light on? And the avatar will say no. It has all the sources coming in, all the manuals, all our procedures and stuff. So I think there's uses, particularly outside of the classroom environment, where people in a room this size may not put their hand up to ask a question, but they can ask it privately and still get the best instructor, that we have, and it allows our own instructors then to focus on the hand skill side.
Yes, thank you, Richard, because you are in fact moving slowly what I wanted to discuss now, which is the innovation, no? And in particular, what we see as potential benefits, again, in human factors in maintenance when we are talking about the new developments in technology. And here, I would like to hear some good practices as well from you, so I would like to start with you, John.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, the machine is not thinking about flight safety. I think this is another quote from captains earlier, but the people behind the machine does, So obviously the machine is never going to replace or reduce the risk or mitigate the risks of failure. But I'm going to take 2 or 3 examples of what we do. I mean, it's not rocket science in terms of technology. I mean, what we've been failing over the past few years is really about the execution. And now we're trying to use the technology so that it does actually help the flight safety process. So let's take one example. One day, one of our mechanics failed to put 4 nuts and bolts. It was not a Ryanair engine, don't worry. So went to test bench. It was not delivered to the customer, so no issue, but boom. He forgot 4 nuts and bolts under a pattern of 104, what he does every day. So shit happens, we talked about complacency, we talked about being very humble, but shit happens. So what we decided to do, and once again, not rocket science in terms of technology, but we are now connecting our torque wrench to the manual itself. So obviously there is always a guy behind the torque wrench, but this technology can help him ensuring that he does not forget the 4 nuts and bolts. Another example, in our operations, one of the critical things we do during the inspection is to do the boroscopic inspection. It looks simple, but it is not actually. When you look at an operator, the quality of the image it does take depends on the speed of rotation of the engine, does depend on the positioning of the boroscope itself, does depend on the lights. So what we're trying to do is to help the operators using a bank of data that is AI automated to help him get an instant feedback, So he takes the picture and he knows out of a bank of pictures that he should decide whether yes or not this part is good, fit for purpose, or it needs to be replaced. That's another example. And the third one, maybe we're using more and more VR, virtual reality, into training. So not only does it help to speed up the training process, I talked about it earlier, but also I feel, coming back to this younger generation, that it does act as a talent magnet. We are in I would say, very high-tech industry, especially in Europe or in Northern America. It's hard to find young people that wants to work in a factory. But then when you add a blend of virtual reality, new technology, it gives you a different picture of what we actually do. And I think these are 3 good examples of how technology can help developing our flight safety culture.
Good examples, thank you. Richard, you were already mentioning about, for the training. I don't know if you had any other thing that you can share with us, how this innovation, perhaps, as you say, it is not like the rocket science, but these small uses of technologies can really improve on the human factors management in maintenance.
Oh, I think I touched on it in terms of the likes of the mobile devices, and I think it's removing the distraction really, and having everything at the hands of the staff, and then it also feeds back in, say for example, to our maintenance control department live, so it's live information, so there's no delay. So the more we can innovate like that, and it's a good point. Like it attracts the younger generation into the industry as well. So, but that's the key area that we've been focusing on.
Mm-hmm. It is true, when we were preparing the panel, things such as distraction, it was one of the key words that it was really repeated. So I would like to follow up on this thing that you were just mentioning, distractions, and how to manage this potential lack of attention that you all were, one way or another, mentioning when talking about human factors management. So how do you manage in your organizations? How do you manage this lack of attention? Janina, I don't know if you have anything to complement here.
I think the first thing is we have to express our expectation regarding the use of new technology. So when I think about distraction, I think about smartphones. And in the keynote it was mentioned the smartphone is the #1 source of distraction, I would say. And we as organization, as management, have to express our expectation and say, okay, this task is safety critical. We work in a safety relevant industry, so focus on your task and have that in mind. Smartphones are a distraction source. And then of course we have to talk about that in trainings, in our human factor trainings, in our safety management trainings. We have to talk about that. Of course it's obvious and everyone knows it, that smartphones can distract, but it's important to talk about that and set the focus on this distraction source, I would say. And in our organization, for example, we talk about real cases when a smartphone was the source of distraction. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's important to protect the employees. So what do I mean by that? Set boundaries. And if you have tasks that are really, really, really critical, then smartphones are not allowed. So maybe you can set like a sterile maintenance area. So smartphones are forbidden in this area or for this task or in this shift. Sometimes you have to protect your employees. Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting perspective. Anders, your
views? I can second that. I mean, for anyone who has a pilot background here, you will be familiar with the term sterile flight deck, where basically it's defined from when you start the engines until you have reached a certain altitude during your climb. You need to focus on the operation and not discuss non-essential matters. And exactly the same can apply to, let's say, an unscheduled maintenance event under time pressure, or even a scheduled maintenance event, which requires a lot of attention and concentration. And maybe we need to develop a term for it, or if maybe you already have in your organization, we don't have, but it sticks and it's applied by everyone, and let's say, it becomes part of the culture that this is how we deal with it. We turn the mobile off, or we leave it behind when we start this task, and so I think that can be applied also.
I would like now to reflect on the commercial pressures that, again, when we come for maintenance and human factors management, it has some certain weight, and how these operational and commercial pressures are really affecting the maintenance. Richard.
I suppose. Look, you can build a flight schedule. You can have the tooling, the equipment, the hangars, and all the everything set up. But back to Florian's introduction, air traffic control has really, over the last couple of years, has put a torpedo in our schedule. And it's not predictable. So you're trying to run your maintenance ground times. And I think it's something that we have to consider as an industry in terms of human factors. That an airline, an operator, maintenance organization can, to the best will, they can have all the trainees, spare engines, spare parts. They don't have the aircraft, or if the aircraft ends up at a base, that starts to put, pressure. And, we as an organization have had to adapt to that. We've had to build in margins, and we're lucky we can do that. We have the resources behind us in terms of building in a margin for being able to cancel A checks and, keep our defect ratio low and cope with air traffic control. But I think it is the elephant in the room in terms of human factors because there's no sign of it going away. An aircraft that typically for us would have landed at 11 o'clock at night are now coming in 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And, we've had to make decisions now later in the evening in terms of moving work around and stuff. So it is a human factors element that we need to really look at.
When we were preparing the panel again, you were mentioning for critical tasks a particular mentality. I don't know if you want to share now with the audience.
A particular mentality, sorry.
The take your time principle.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's take your time, and we really do encourage the staff to take their time and take a delay. Move away from the side that we have an intended turnaround time, and but we really need to make sure that they understand and take that pressure off. Particularly coming from my role, it needs to be a clear message to the organisation that take delays. We've hundreds of delays every day, and they are acceptable. And why we ask for reports is to learn from those delays. Is there different tooling that we need? Is it something we need to do in the manual? And it's really encouraging that and encouraging more and more reports, particularly with the generations that are coming through. And, we've had successful recruitment coming from other industries. And back to your point earlier on, it's encouraging that it's okay to report. It's okay to report that he's on his mobile phone on the ramp. That's okay. And we need to say thank you for the report. We welcome it and continue to publish that, push that from our level right down.
Exactly. John, do you have some perhaps views or lessons learned?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about operational pressure and financial pressure, it's true, it is huge, We can all see in the newspaper that there are so many aircraft on ground because there are engines missing. So we don't want to be on the airlines for sure. So our capacity, our capacity to support our customer and to make them fly is obviously a day-to-day issue. If you look at the financial impact, our activity, for example, does directly hit the P&L bottom line of the Safran Group. So you see, you have all these forces every day, operations, financial, that could distract you from what is the essence of our job, is to ensure flight safety. And in my case, but I know we share the same, and based on what you said, and the same of Lufthansa and everywhere, I feel that the culture is the basis for everything. When you go to a top management saying, I haven't delivered the engine, the customer is gonna shout at us. Never happens with Ryanair because we're delivering on time, so that's great.
That's a separate panel.
But our management, my management, is never gonna blame us if it's because we decided to not deliver an engine because of a quality issue, And this culture from top to bottom is the essence for everything else. So in our case, and just to give an example of what we do, because this is theory, but in reality, in actual facts, what do we do about it? For example, we are the OEM. Together with our partner GE, we own the technical publications, the engine shop manual. But as I said, we are also dealing with roughly 80 to 90% of all the LEAP engines in the world that are being maintained. So we learn from the operations. So what we're trying to do is to circle back very, very quickly whenever shit happens, whenever there is one item missing in the technical publication. How do we improve the technical publication itself? Not only is it going to help us being better, but the technical publication is open. It's for everyone. So we're trying to learn as well and to have our feet on the ground, on the shop floor, to ensure that the quality of our documents is getting better. And another example is whenever shit happens, we have roughly 30-ish shops in the world with our partner GE. Shit happens every day, you can trust me. The question is, how quick do you understand the problem itself, and how quick do you share it with your colleagues? Because we don't want it to happen again. So that's something we do. We have a robust process in place where we try to learn, but not only learn fast, So these are two examples of what we're trying to do to improve flight safety in our operations.
Thank you, John. Anders, about this commercial pressure.
Yeah. So
from the operator perspective,
I
maintenance.
see that we were a little bit afraid that maybe we would not have enough time, but I see we have plenty of time. So let me elaborate. When we were, let's say, listening to some of the other panels, I used the time to ask ChatGPT to make a comparison of the development of the global fleet for the past 25 years and the next 15. So it has doubled in 25 years, and it will double again in the next 15 years. So it goes a little bit faster. And then connecting back to what Captain Harting said here about there's no lack of flight crew. There will be potential shortage of qualified mechanics and qualified flight crew going forward with this development. And then if we look at that new generation, which is supposed to be onboarded in our organizations, who are easily distracted and learn in different ways, if we don't manage that properly, then I also took the liberty to, let's say, map a couple of items most commonly, let's say, present or bringing the most risk to maintenance activities. So at the top of the list is lack of familiarity with the task. So you have new employees who may not be familiar with the task, right? Time shortage, that's the commercial pressure, which I and my colleagues in the management are maybe putting on our colleagues. With the best intentions to serve our, let's say, customers, etc., but we need to be aware of it. Information overload. We give them all kinds of info from various tools and channels. Poor feedback from system. Let's come back to that later. Inexperienced, poor instructions. Another one listed task familiarity, time pressure, task interruptions, probably from devices or maybe well-meaning but interfering colleagues. Could be from our ops control center or the maintenance control is calling. How is it going? Well, do you want me to spend time on explaining, or do you want me to finish the task? I need to be uninterrupted. I look at the screen also and I see fatigue.
Yes,
you know.
let's leave it.
Yes. Okay. But,
don't jump into the...
Nevertheless, so we are now maybe at the time of night, which is the window of circadian low. You are tired and you are maybe at the end of your shift, and then you have your AOG, which you need to fix under pressure. So it's a recipe for a perfect storm. Right? We need to be aware of it, and we need to be mindful of it, and we need to train our, let's say, team members to be able to say stop or to delay when necessary. So those are my reflections. So I wanted to connect back a little bit to what we said before. We also need to make, let's say, I like that you share that case. You know, someone is stopping a flight. That's a major interruption, especially for, let's say, a young and inexperienced colleague. Imagine all those passengers. It could be 400, or it could be freight. It could be 10,000 parcels going somewhere, you know. And you say stop. And that needs to be cherished and highlighted as a good thing. Right? Yeah. So we need to make success stories out of it.
To make it as a success story.
Yes. And it's not good enough to just, let's say, talk the talk. We need to walk the walk. We cannot, let's say, complain. What if it turns out that there was a mistake? The flashlight was found. We still need to make it a success story, because what if, right? Yeah.
So good reflections. Anders, I saw that you wanted to go to the word cloud that we see here, but now I'm asking my colleagues that we have the word cloud on the screens, and then we can comment on them. The word cloud, please.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's there. Okay, so so thank you again for being active here. It is supporting this discussion. So we see, a very large word, which is complacency, and we see a very few of them that are close when we are talking about what's affecting human performance in maintenance. I would like to have your views, your quick views on this. Who wants to start?
Which bit? Distraction?
How do you see, what this tells you, this cloud of words, that it is what the audience replied to our question of what are the key factors for human factors?
I suppose, look, for me, our strategy has been keep our defect ratio low in maintenance, you know, and I think if we can manage if we can as a team, management team, you know, not present the staff with a significant workload every night, if we can and get the staff to buy into that as a culture as well, in terms of keep our defects ratio low, stay on top of the defects and manage them, and if you can get a buy-in from the staff, and that's not easy, and you know, we're lucky to have that investment behind us, but if we can keep our defect ratio low, the workload low, that the staff also benefit from that in terms of their workload, that they come in every day and every night. So, you know, we keep our defect ratio at 0.25 or 1 defect in every 4 aircraft. So it also helps the flight crew in terms of human factors. And I think the more we can do, and you know, convincing investors in the company as well, that there's a benefit in that, in spending the money to keep that. Also then reduces your reports, your incidents. If the flight crew and engineers have less to deal with on a daily basis, and back to then as an industry looking at the delays and curfew issues and air traffic control.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, Nina,
I would like
we
to
have
say,
this. Yes, please
I would like
comment
to
on
say
this.
something regarding complacency and lack of training, because we talked about the onboarding of new colleagues, and we had to onboard a lot of new colleagues in the last 2 years, I would say, and we were always afraid that the new colleagues can cause occurrences. And when we see or review our occurrences, it's a totally different picture. We see that the older colleagues, the trained colleagues, create occurrences because they are complacent. They are quite confident. I know what I'm doing. I'm a long-year mechanic. I have a long working history. I know what to do. I don't have to check anything. And these are the sources for failures. And we see that complacency is one of the biggest things we have in our organization. So we try to focus our training, also our human factor training and safety training, on complacency, and talk to our colleagues. Be aware there can be changes. There can revision changes, manual changes. So you have to read everything, and we try to help them to,
So you agree that this is one of the most significant contributing factors. Good. John, for you?
Yeah, something I want to mention is that we, over the past 4 years, we've been going through that massive ramp-up I was talking about. We haven't seen any correlation between the number of new employees and the non-quality we export to our customers. So we could say the key performance indicator is pretty good. But I think that was said earlier during one of those panels. This is the risk as well, So we try to use a lot the word humility. I mean, this is close to complacency. I mean, the lack of complacency. And this comes with what we call the Gemba culture. And you mentioned it. Walk the talk. Being on the shop floor. Being with our new colleagues, ensuring each and every one of them got a mentor during their training phase, and circle back as well whenever there is an issue, ensuring that every day, every week, every month, all our staff is aware about the importance of what they do every day. So it's not because your KPI is well oriented that you should stop focusing on this thing. Actually, I would feel this is the opposite,
Yes, it could create this complacency, that the audience was highlighting.
So, and coming back always to this question of culture. If your top management, your line management, your direct manager on the shop floor is always talking about the importance of safety, it will become part of your culture as well. So that's key, definitely.
It's an interesting reflection. Anders, you were keen to go to the cloud,
yeah.
so yes, share with us what this tells you.
You stop me if I go too far, but no. I think I have the luxury of. I'm looking at the top, the safety cross-domain. So I come from a certain background. I have also other educations, and I work across the department. So I really think that's beneficial, and we need to do more of it. I see lack of training. I see maybe knowledge. It's not the one standing out most, but lack of training probably leads to lack of knowledge, right? And then I want to connect back to the previous panel who spoke about the reporting, and then how come we don't get enough reports? Getting, let's say, mechanics to report is notoriously difficult, right? But if we scrutinize ourselves, and also you here on the front row, is the EPAS and the regulations about reporting good enough? Do we have good enough examples? Is it maybe too abstract for the normal worker who are supposed to report? Can we do better here? The flight crew have worked in this environment for a very long time, but the mechanics have not. They're supposed to report, but we know it's difficult. So can we make something better here?
Okay, I see a conflicting message with Janina, who was saying exactly the opposite. But okay, different views. It's good.
Please.
From my point of view, it's not difficult to get reports from mechanics because you have to explain them why it is important to report. And I perceive it totally different because in our DNA, it's set that everyone should report, and we encourage that a lot. And I don't know who said it in the panel before. Report everything, and then we investigate the report, and we come back to you, and we give feedback. And I think that's the important part: give feedback to the report. And it's not the AI that should send a feedback. From my point of view, it should be the direct line manager who talks to the employee and give a feedback and tell him or her, "Thank you very much for your report. We really value your voice." And then talk about the occurrence, about the report, and we can learn out of it. And if a mechanic sees the report is valued, then I can tell you they will report more and more.
Yeah. I think that's key, and we see it a lot with tooling. And it's, you go to various bases and they'll bring up issues. You're going to go, why didn't you put a report in? And it's really about the feedback. And the challenge from my side really is if you look at the camo staff who traditionally would work 9 to 5 and maybe have not worked at 2 o'clock in the morning and the circadian low, and it's marrying those up, that they understand the issues, and also that the line see that the report means something, and I put that report in, I actually did get an extra tool or whatever that may be, and it's the feedback loop across the organization is key.
Good.
And I think it's important to express the just culture, and express reporting is key, and you're not punished. Of course, there is a red line if your behavior is reckless, but as long as it's not reckless, you're not punished, and the reports are very important for the whole industry, not just for your organization, but for the whole industry.
I would like to leave it here with this just culture as a very key concept in the discussion. I would like to go now to the questions that our audience has sent us for this panel. I'm asking now to have on the screen the questions, and here we are. Wow, a lot of voted questions. And I will start with the first one. In a human factors way, fatigue thinking, has there ever been a proposal to regulate the number of hours a licensed maintenance technical can work? So, yeah, you are not in a competent authority, but I would like to have your views from an industry perspective, or what do you think of this connection?
I think the reality is that the organizations themselves have those practices in place. We certainly do. From my own experience, that we you can't work 24/7, and
it wouldn't be a problem if it was more regulated, because we are doing it anyway. So.
Well, in the 145 we have, in fact, regulation about the static, so and there is some more material. But in fact, this is one of the potential threats, right, that we have to recognize when talking about the SMS, no? But here, the interesting link is to the licensed maintenance technician instead of the organization, right? So what I can see is that you are in favor of the, or it is something that is already happening,
basically. It's already happening in reality, yeah.
Any other different view on this?
I think one of the challenges, I think we talked about it earlier, is the difference between authorities, the difference of approach between authorities. For example, we hold 70 different Part 145 agreements. So we have the pillars, EASA, FAA, CAC, but we have all these authorities auditing it every month, 2 or 3 times a month, and even our customers on top, so we are always brought back to the safety management culture. But I can say my experience is that the level of awareness is very, very different. We've been really forced to think even more with the safety management system and the development of the Part 145 rules, and this was very, very helpful for sure. But if you talk to another authority somewhere else, it's a very different approach. So I'm not gonna say more than this, but this is the reality. It's different with our customers as well. So that's one challenge in terms of airworthiness rules. The other challenge we have to face, and we're talking about it during the break, we're talking about one layer here, the operators, the large OEM of this world, but we have to think that we have hundreds of suppliers as well. And when you look at the the way to continue to improve flight safety is, for me, the next big challenge. Is how we as OEMs or big players in this industry, we are also helping them, if not forcing them, to embrace this culture as well.
Thank you. I would like to go to the next question. Thank you. Maintenance teams often record findings in the tech log instead of safety reports. So this is again coming back to the reporting. So the reporting mindset isn't fully established. How can we strengthen it? Here, Anders, you were proposing a couple of things. So.
Sorry. No,
Please,
sorry, I was going to say.
Richard.
I was going to say I tend to disagree because they are reporting it in the technical log. So really, it's down to the organisation having. This is where we come into labs tools and IT tools, and having the tools to be able to data mine and take out that information. So I kind of tend to disagree because they are reporting in the tech log. It'd be different if they weren't writing in the tech log and weren't addressing the issues. They're, as an organization, okay, they may not have put in an engineer special report, but they've wrote it in the log. So I think the onus might be on the organization to have the tools to extract that out and put it and overlay it with the reports as well.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, there could be a human factors angle. So there's no defect, but the mistake was made and corrected, so nothing happened. How do you capture that? That's not going to go in the tech log. So that could maybe be where this question comes from. So how do you pick that up somehow?
I would like to have your views. And before we go to the next question, this is not really what you, well, in your case, you are maintenance organization, so really you don't really see the technical logs. So I don't see...
No, training, again. So how to strengthen it? Training, education, that is the way forward. And make use cases or good examples of how it can be done, and maybe even have, let's say, examples of what shouldn't be done. It's also okay.
You were mentioning as well this cross-domain dimension, how different domains can learn from each other. That might be a good way forward.
It could be, it is different though. For let's say a 145 line station compared to the reporting a pilot is doing. Sometimes they overlap certain events or issues, but the examples of when a report would be appropriate are very different between the two. So I don't see a big commonality. Maybe the just culture and the communication, let's say the best practices as such can be transferred across domains, but the topics are different.
Thank you. So we go for the next question. We come to this pressure, commercial pressure, when making decisions. So technicians and engineers are often under huge pressure making decisions which can have tremendous commercial impact. That we already discussed. How to empower them to do the right thing.
Yeah, if I may, I will link that one with the one from Mary, which I like a lot. In our case, and that's another example of how we put flight safety on top of everything. We decide to have less engine in our shops. So it's not good for our customers because the consequence is the time of wing is higher. So they cannot operate their aircraft. But that's the actual reality. The backlog of engine is full of our shop because the demand is still higher than our capacity is growing. And the reason is we don't have enough mechanics to deal with those engines. So we prefer to have less and to do it well rather than pushing all of these engines in our shops and not doing the right level of quality. So
Yes, which is a huge pressure. It is not a commercial pressure of having an AOG,
that's a way to
but it's
relieve the
pressure,
pressure as well from our guys. We're talking about the culture. You have to raise your hand if anything happens. But a more structural way to limit the risk and reduce the hit is to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, we have this capacity. Let's not do more than what we are actually able to do. So.
Janina, you were before you were putting an example, no? How to make this clear. Is there any other additional element reflecting on this empowerment?
I think it's important to make clear that compliance and safety comes first, and then all the commercial magic can happen, I would say. And I think it's important to stress that in every occasion you have. So in our case, for example, our CEO says that every time he has a webcast, etc., he says safety ranks first for us. And it's like a mantra. Safety ranks first for us. So everyone knows safety ranks first for us. And then we can decide, is there any commercial aspect? And I think that's important to empower the colleagues. Yeah, you have to act safely and compliant.
Thank you. The next question is very interesting as well, and it is asking for real practice. So I believe we have a good panel to discuss this one. When are we actually going to implement real actual implementation? Fatigue risk management in maintenance, how? The tech shortage in this audience, increasing the risks. So real practice, what do you do to implement a fatigue risk management in maintenance, which has, of course, an impact in the human factors management?
I think it's very different between as a manufacturer, which generally plan the work, I assume, versus, for example, in your organization where if your base maintenance is one thing, but the line maintenance and tackling AOGs, it's different. You can't really plan it, but otherwise you would avoid having complex tasks during the walker and so forth, but or at the end of a very long shift. But sometimes you don't have that luxury when you're an operator and you have, let's say, certain pressure. But you could start imposing restrictions or additional restrictions to your duty time for your mechanics and so forth, similar to those we see for flight crew. If we connect back to that previous question, that was maybe more directed to the regulator than to us as operators or manufacturers. But I would embrace it in the spirit of level playing field. Why not? Why leave it up to each, let's say, organization to develop their own? Why not have some common platform? That's how I look upon it.
Can I say something?
Please.
Because we see that fatigue and stress are rising since post-COVID, and it can have different reasons. So it's not only working hours and working in shifts and working at night. It can have different reasons. For example, all the events happening at the moment. So it's a lot. Distraction from smartphones, etc. That all causes stress and fatigue. And I think it's important to talk to the employees and really understand what are the drivers for fatigue. And we, for example, integrated fatigue management into our human factor and safety management training to really talk about fatigue. What is fatigue? So we talk about stress management. We talk about sleep, the importance of sleep. We talk about health management, sport, good nutrition. It's a combination of all these things to really tackle fatigue, I would say. And I think it's also, again, the speak up and raise your hand thing, because the employee has to talk to his or her supervisor if he or she feels stress, fatigue, anything, to find a really good solution.
I think, like, as an organization, you have to adjust your manpower given the, based on your statistics. So, for example, how do we manage that? Is we have AOG dedicated teams because we know we're going to have so many aircraft that are AOG every night. Yes, sometimes they might be sitting around drinking coffee because that AOG hasn't happened. But as an organization, you're able to adapt your manpower, and by your statistics as to, last summer we needed this, and that's something that we've found quite successful in terms of being able to have dedicated teams that are not part of the planned work. They're just literally there for the unexpected.
Okay, it's a real example, no? How
real example.
Yes. Thank you for that. And the next question is more, it's a kind of the same thing, but it is more focusing on the time pressure, of course. The reporting means time, right? So is this aspect something you consider when you are managing the occurrences? And here again, we are focusing more on the human factors. The time pressure that this regulation, which is the one on occurrences, is imposing, no?
I think from our perspective, what more can the mechanic do or the engineer do is really order the part up as soon as they can. They're limited to what they can do, really, and it's very difficult to keep it under 3 hours, to be fair, because by the time you order the part, troubleshoot, get it. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at and addressed, probably separate to this forum, in terms of, like, 3 hours is fairly impossible for the engineer to fix an aircraft within 3 hours, to be honest. If any complexity at all involved in it, whether it be apart from another station, your 3 hours is gone straight away. So that's something I think the industry needs to take away and say, it's unnecessarily putting pressure on because it's not achievable.
So, yeah, with this last statement, I would like to close the discussion. We've covered quite a number of questions. Some of them are a bit repetitive, or we more or less covered them in previous questions. I just want to thank first our panelists for sharing your views and the good practices. Thank you for that. And thank you to the audience for being active by giving us questions, and as well with this small exercise we had with the word cloud. Thank you, and yeah, I wish you a good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you.